If you want to see how I turn this into this, then come along, I'll show you how. Good morning, YouTube. This is Chad with Just Add Wood, and I want to show you the results of a project I did over the weekend. What we have in the master bathroom here is a dead space behind the entry door. You can't get in or out without swinging this door open into whatever's back there. And for a long time, we had this jewelry box sitting behind there, which was awkward to get to, and it was dark because the light is on the other side of the bathroom. So what we did is turn this dead space into a perfectly usable space with a mirror and a hidden jewelry box in the stud cavity. So this turned out way better than expected. We absolutely love it. So let me show you how I did it. Okay, step one, find a mirror at a store. So after you've identified the space that you want to install your mirror on, you need to find a mirror. So we found this mirror at a local retail store. I think it was a hobby store or a Michael's or something like that. She liked the frame, the colors on this one. It goes with the rest of the decor in the bathroom. So this is the one we chose. But more importantly, one of the reasons we chose is there's a cavity behind the frame. So if you can't find a suitable frame that you can mount drawer slides to, you'll need to order a piece of glass and then build your own frame for it. Otherwise, just buy one that has a little bit of room behind the frame, and I'm going to epoxy in a piece of scrap wood in the back here at the top and the bottom, and that'll allow me to mount the drawer slides too. So when we put the drawer slides on the wall, in essence, we want this to slide out to expose the jewelry box and to slide back to hide it when we're not using it. But first, I'm going to get some measurements, draw the measurements on the wall, and then get to cutting out the drywall. Okay, so I've got my lines drawn at the top and at the bottom. What I did is I drew a line to about where I think the stud is, all the way over to about where I think the stud is. I did that at the top, and I also did that at the bottom. Now, I haven't drawn my side lines yet because I don't know exactly where the stud is. I use a stud finder to get a good idea of where it is, but I want to cut a line precisely where that stud starts and stops on both sides. So in order to do so, I'm going to poke a drywall knife into the drywall and cut until I hit the stud, and then I'm going to draw a line right where the stud starts. And that way I can get a good clean line on both sides, because I'm going to wrap the interior of this box with some thin wood. So I want a good clean line for the wood to run into the drywall. I did come back and draw another line about 2 inches down from the outside lines so that I make sure that my hole is smaller than the mirror, so the mirror will cover the entire hole. So now let's get to cutting and see where the studs are. I probably should have started out by saying you want to pick a safe spot on the wall where you have good reason to believe there's no wires, there's no plumbing, there's nothing in the wall that's going to obstruct you from building this recessed jewelry box. So I started with a stud finder. I used a contactless electric probe to make sure there was no wires in the wall. Now this wall I chose backs up to a linen closet. So I was pretty sure there was no outlets and no plumbing vents, no water lines or anything like that in there. But I went ahead and checked it all just to make sure it was safe to cut into this wall. And even so, doing all that homework to make sure the wall was empty, I still had a surprise in there that I'll show you in just a minute. All right, all I did was use a level to score the drywall from stud to stud. And then I'm just gonna use a utility knife to go in and do a nice, clean, straight cut and expose the cubby hole I wanna fill with jewelry. I should also mention, even though I failed to record it, that once you cut the drywall away, you will need to add a 2x4 at the top and the bottom of the hole to give you something to bolt the drawer slides to. Well, that was easy. Ta-da! So to line the back of this opening, I went down to my big box store and I bought a sheet of 1/2-inch plywood, and I had them cut it down to size. I didn't even have to break my saw out. So I'm going to take this piece of 1/2-inch plywood, I'm going to drop it in the hole, just like that, and then I'm going to attach it in here. I'm going to frame the opening, with some 1x material, add a little piece of trim, make it all look real pretty. Then we'll attach the slides at the top and the bottom, and attach the mirror to the slides so it can slide out of the way. And in a minute, I'll show you all the goodies I bought for the interior of the jewelry box. So you may have noticed that I have some wire shelves inside the closet that is on the back side of this drywall. So opening this cubby in between the studs is exposing the back of the piece of drywall that is inside the towel closet in my bathroom. And in that towel closet is some ventilated shelving. And this is how that ventilated shelving looks behind the drywall after you install it. You push the little plastic pins in, and then the nail sticks through the middle. Well, unfortunately, that won't let my plywood sit flush against the drywall like I want. So I'm gonna have to overcome this. I don't wanna just cut them off because I don't want my shelves falling down. So I'm gonna have to go around it. And in order to do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line up my piece of plywood with these anchors from the other side, and I'm gonna draw a line everywhere there's a bracket sticking through. And then I'm gonna mark it. So I'm gonna mark that where it is left to right. And on the other side, I've marked where each one is located. And so wherever these lines intersect is where I need to shallow out a little piece of wood with a Forstner bit to overcome these sticking out. You'll see in a minute. Moving back into the garage, I've set the mirror on some sawhorses so I can work on the back of it there. I need to figure out a way to mount my slides to the back of this mirror. This is exposed glass, and it's in about a 1-inch deep recess, and it's got this plasticky sort of, I don't know, epoxy or acrylic frame, and there's nowhere to screw screws into without breaking the glass. So I've cut some scrap plywood that I'm going to drop into the back of here after I remove these little tabs that hold the cardboard in place. We'll pull those out, and then we're going to epoxy in with a 2-part epoxy this plywood. Now the reason I chose this plywood, and your frame may be different depending on which mirror and frame you buy, or if you build your own, you want your drawer slides to be flush with the back of the mirror so that they can mount to the wall. Well, the back of my mirror is about 1 inch deep. So I chose a 1/2-inch plywood. I'm going to drop that in, and then that's going to allow the 1/2-inch plywood and the 1/2-inch slide to be flush with the back of the mirror so that I can mount it to the wall. So the first thing I need to do is remove all these pesky picture frame staples or picture frame holders from the back of the frame, get them out of the way so my plywood will sit flush, and so I can mix up some 2-part epoxy and get it installed. Now, you may or may not be aware that shiny surfaces and glue don't really get along. So the 2-part epoxy I'm going to use may or may not stick to shiny plastic. So in order to break that shine, I am giving it a light sanding. They call that giving it tooth. I don't know exactly what that means, but it just gives the glue a little textured surface to stick to. So I'm going to go ahead and give the thing a light sanding. Then I'm going to mix up some 2-part epoxy, drop in my plywood, put a couple clamps in place, and set it aside to let it dry while I move on with the rest of the project. You may recall a few moments ago where I drew some marks on the plywood where there were wire shelf anchors sticking into the jewelry box where I want this piece of plywood to sit flat against the wall. So in order to overcome that, I'm drawing lines on the plywood from each mark, and wherever they intersect is where I need to drill a shallow hole so that the plywood will sit over those nails sticking into the jewelry box. So I'm just using a Forstner bit here because I think it's about a 1-inch hole. Should get the job done, and I'm not drilling all the way through, although that won't matter because it's going to be covered in material. I'm just drilling a shallow little hole so that it'll sit over the nails sticking out of the drywall. So for the inside of this jewelry box, we went on an Amazon shopping spree for all jewelry box related items. And so first thing we came up with is, what did we want to cover the back of the jewelry box in? We decided we wanted to do it in a material and do a little quilting with some polyfill, some real thin polyfill. And so we're going to use this material to line the back of the jewelry box. We also got a couple of little wood pole sockets, because we're going to add a wooden pole that we're going to be able to have removable. It's going to go across the jewelry box horizontally, and she'll be able to hang bangles and scarves and things like that from it. We got some cool little hooks from the Amazons for necklaces and the like, and I thought these were cool little hooks. You can hang a bunch of necklaces on at varying heights. We also got a couple of, I thought the pictures made them a little more dainty than they were, but we found these cool little brushed nickel ball end hooks as well. And for the bottom of the jewelry box, we're gonna set two of these little drawers from the craft store Michael's. You can probably get these anywhere. We just happened to see them there and thought they'd be cool. So we're gonna set them on the bottom shelf of the jewelry box and stain them the same color as the bangle shelf. And we're also gonna do a little horizontal shelf about a third of the way up inside the jewelry box. So these are little display case ring fingers that you can set on things like that, and she can mount her ring. She can hold her rings on there. And then to top it all off, at the top of the jewelry box, we're going to have an earring holder, and this is going to hang from one of the heavier duty looking hooks, and this will hold. I think it's ridiculously long. It's too long for this jewelry box. We're going to trim it down a bit. But I think it holds like 300 earrings, and all the links will be in the description. I don't have any affiliate links, or I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I'll provide all the links where we found all this stuff, because I think we've decided to use it all. I think it's going to look pretty neat. So let's see what happens. Okay, time to stain all the wooden parts, and after a little light sanding, which I will not subject you to, it's time to get to staining, so this stuff can be drying, using some old leftover stain that was sitting on the shelf that hadn't dried out. So I shook it up real good. I'm going to brush it on and wipe off the excess, and then set this stuff aside so it can dry. After cutting the sides and the top and the bottom of the jewelry box, I'm going to cover it in the material. We're just going to cut the material slightly larger than the pieces I want to cover, and I'm going to wrap the pieces around the edges and just staple it from behind. Got the slides in, down here, up here. See what happens. Fingers crossed. Look at that. Yes. Look at that. Okay, in closing, the mirror looks like it's permanently affixed from this angle, which is a goal we were going for. We didn't want it to look like it was on slides. So to anybody that doesn't know, it looks like a regular old mirror, and we know that it slides open, and inside that mirror there's earring holder and big hooks and little necklace hooks and 20 inches of room to hang long necklaces and ring fingers, and a bar to hold bangles and scarves and bracelets, and drawers at the bottom. So other than that, in closing, we spent about $100 at Amazon on all of these jewelry box doodads, which I think fit real well and worked real well. This was a super rewarding project, turned out way better than I ever imagined it would. It was fun to do, it was a fun video to make, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, follow along, subscribe, like, and look forward to more projects like this. Thanks.